back again. Okay, so some notes from the previous page from last time. (31:24) The Son of God came to Laban in a dream and warned him to do Jacob no harm. 31:29 Laban calls the word of God Laban calls the word the God of Jacob's father, that is, the God of Isaac. Laban's problem was his unbelief, for he did not believe in the very one who appeared to him in a dream. 31:42 Jacob believed in the Son of God and thanked him for rebuking Laban for his injustice. Laban was a liar and a cheat, for he had changed Jacob's wages 10 times. In all this, Jacob, so to speak, had stepped aside and allowed the Lord to fight his battles over the 20-year period. 31:45 The stone set up as a pillar was a type of the incarnate Son, for he is the foundation stone, pillar of the church. These stones are types of the living stones in the church. 31:48-49 The pillar and the stones were called this heap, witnesses, and the vision. This vision was the vision of God, the Word who appeared to Laban. The vision of God, the Word who appeared to both Laban and Jacob. The pillar and stones foreshadow the incarnation of the church. 32:12 Your seed is a reference to Christ, Galatians 3:16, and together with him, the church composed of both Jews and Gentiles is a reference to the Jews based on physical lineage. 32:1-10 This passage is read at Vespers of the Feast of Theophany of the Lord. Jacob wrestles with God, and he arose that night and took his 2 wives, his 2 maidservants, and his 11 sons, and crossed over the ford of Jabbok. He took them and crossed over the brook, and sent over what he had. Then Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until the breaking of day. Now, when he saw he did not prevail against him, he touched the socket of his hip, and the socket of Jacob's hip was dislocated as he wrestled with him. Then he said, "Let me go, for the day breaks." But he said, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." So he said to him, "What is your name?" He said, "Jacob." And he said, "Your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel. For you have prevailed with God and with men." Then Jacob asked, saying, "Tell me your name, I pray." And he said, "Why do you ask about my name?" And he blessed him there. So Jacob called the name of that place the form of God, for I saw God face to face, and my soul was saved. When the form of God passed by, the sun rose on him, but he limped on his hip. Therefore, to this day, the children of Israel do not eat the muscle that shrank, which is on the hip socket, because he touched the socket of Jacob's hips and the muscle that shrank. Jacob and Esau meet. Now Jacob lifted his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau his brother was coming, and 400 men with him. So Jacob divided the children among Leah, Rachel, and the 2 maidservants. Then he put the maidservants and their sons in front, Leah and her children behind, and Rachel and Joseph last. He then crossed over before them and bowed himself to the ground 7 times until he came near to his brother. But Esau ran to him, embraced him, and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. Then he lifted his eyes and saw the women and children, and said, "Who are these with you?" He replied, "The children of God mercifully gave your servant." Then the maidservants came near they and their children, and bowed down. Leah also came near with the children, and they bowed down. Afterward, Rachel and Joseph came near, and they bowed down. Then Esau said, "What are these things to you, all this company I met?" So he said, "That your servant might find grace in the sight of my Lord." But Esau said, "I have enough, my brother. Keep what you have for yourself." But Jacob replied, "If I have now found grace in your sight, receive the present from my hands, inasmuch as I have seen your face, as though someone might see the face of God, and you were pleased with me. Receive my blessing I brought you, because God had shown me mercy, and I have enough." Thus he urged him, and he took it. Then Esau said, "Let us take our journey. Let us go, and I will go before you." But Jacob said to him, "My Lord knows the children are weak, and the flocks and the herds with me are giving birth. If therefore the men should drive them hard one day, all the cattle would die. Let my Lord go on ahead before his servant. I will lead on too slowly at a pace the children are able to bear, until I come to my Lord in Seir." Then Esau said, "Let me leave with you some of the people with me." But he said, "What need is there? It is enough that I found grace in my Lord's sight." So Esau returned that day on his way to Seir. Then Jacob journeyed to Succoth, built houses, and made booths for his cattle. Therefore he called the name of that place Succoth. Then Jacob came safely to Salem, a city of Shechem in the land of Canaan, when he came from Mesopotamia of Syria, and he took a position in front of the city. He then bought the parcel of the land where he pitched his tent from Hamor, Shechem's father, for 100 male lambs. There he set up an altar and called on the God of Israel. And like I said before, this is the foreshadowing that goes on in the Bible. Once again, they're foreshadowing to Jacob into Israel. And once again, a name change goes into more foreshadowing. And this is going to set up what happens and what proceeds from Jacob being named Israel. So therefore, biblically, he is becoming something more, something greater. And the sacrifices that he made as Jacob is now he'll have to make new sacrifices as Israel. Once again, the Bible is showing a progression.